Hi, you're watching Indiapostlive, India's first web TV news conversation. I'm Shivraj, and today we're talking about nursery chaos. That's right, the nursery admissions and what's happening there. You can join in on the conversation by logging on to our website, indiapostlive.com. You can also post your tweets using hashtag India Post Live. Right, it's been 4 months for parents and a lot of confusion about how nursery admissions are going to take place. With the courts intervening and also with the authorities having conflicting views, parents are now floundering to understand where the kids stand vis-a-vis the crucial entry into those big schools. The Supreme Court now has also stepped in, asking the government whether they can increase seats to allow students from other states to also join the schools. Let's take a look at all that confusion.
It seems easier to get a suitable job than getting a child admitted into nursery class in a Delhi school. It's been 4 months. Thousands of parents are still waiting to see their tiny tots step into a nursery class. The admission process started in January. 3 lists of candidates are already out. But the process is on hold due to legal disputes. This has meant an indefinite delay. Now the Apex Court has stepped in. On Monday, it ordered schools to accommodate the interstate quota cases. The court also asked the state government to explore the possibility of coaxing private schools to add 5 or 6 seats in nursery class for outsiders. Delhi is a manifestation of an all-India phenomenon. With scanty schools and a huge population, nursery admissions remain chaotic across India. Will the Supreme Court be able to find a permanent solution to this problem?
So clearly, nursery admissions is becoming tougher than even procuring a job. Joining us in studio for a conversation is Nipa Vishisht, who is a principal at Udgam, that has schools in Kalkaji, Noida, and also one opening in Gurgaon. And joining us via Google Hangout, Amit Bhargav, who has been an activist and a former journalist who's been really talking about the issue and trying to get some clarity on it. Now, Amit, it's been 4 months of back and forth. The courts have intervened. There have been authorities giving conflicting views on point systems. Parents are really confused. So what is really the root cause of all this confusion?
See, the root cause of the problem is the flawed guidelines of the Directorate of Education. Now, I would say that these guidelines were progressive only to the extent that a common criteria was adopted this year. Otherwise, the schools were, 1,500 schools, 1,500 criteria, and parents were taken for a ride. So until to the extent that common criteria was adopted, the guidelines otherwise are flawed. They promote dynastic process of admission. So what happens is that if your grandfather went to a school and your father went to a school, so you also go to that school, and your children and your grandchildren also go to that school, and no one else gets in most of the big schools. So therefore, that's the root cause of the problem. So now everyone is scrambling for seats. So first the siblings get in, then the alumni get in, and then whatever is left, or alumni were competing with interstate transfer cases. So people with just neighborhood points didn't even have a chance to go for draw lots. So they were not even invited for draw lots. Now, midway during this whole process, though I had been telling this to Directorate of Education, and as the government works, they file your representations, whether it comes from the CM, you write to the LG, it goes to a certain branch, and they just simply file it. That's the problem. They don't listen to sane voices.
Okay.
Now, midway during this whole process this year, the Directorate changed the rules of the game.
Sure.
So it said that 5 points for interstate transfer are no longer valid. Now that resulted in whosoever alumni were in wait list, where the draws happened at 75 points, got the seats vacated by interstate transfer cases.
Okay.
So obviously now these beneficiaries, though unfair beneficiaries of an unfair policy,
are resisting the process. Are resisting the process now.
Yeah, so these were unfair beneficiaries of an unfair policy, but whatever it is, they had confirmed seats. Now, all of a sudden, they find themselves without seats.
Okay.
So they approach courts. The court gave a decision which benefited one party, did not benefit another. There were also these confirmed seats in some schools where 70 pointers, these fortunate survivors of a highly flawed policy. They, very few of them had confirmed seats, the 70
Right.
pointers. So the court said redraw for all
Okay.
after taking these 5 points off. So these 70 pointers then approached the court. So first the
Right.
interstate transfer cases went to the court saying that now that we had confirmed seats, now if we were to have redraw of lots with everyone, then our chances are limited.
Okay, so
Uh,
Amit, we've got a principal of a nursery school in studio, and I just wanted to also get Nipa's perspective. What Amit pointed out now, redrawing of lots, a lot of confusion. From a nursery school principal perspective, what kind of pressures that put on you, especially with a lot of obviously aggrieved parents coming to your doorstep?
See, what he said exactly is the present scenario these days. The parents are in lurch. They don't even know what, and most of them being the parents for the first time are absolutely and utterly confused because each time they come out with a new guideline, and when they go through it, they keep reciprocating, and each school has a different guideline. It's not that all schools have one particular guidelines for the parents to follow or a particular point system. So each time they read something in the newspapers, and then it's like lurch parents coming over to the school to find out what's actually happening. And while they're discussing, they confuse, themselves and among themselves, like different discussions,
Right. So,
And
like Amit pointed out, it is a flawed sort of procedure that has been laid in. But I remember speaking to you and you saying that perhaps it's come just too late to really do anything about it.
Absolutely.
So, what kind of pressures that put on your kids, for instance, who haven't managed to make the cut?
See, most of the time parents do manage, but this time it's really been bad. And all these transfer cases that were there, the parents have already shifted from there. They've relocated themselves to Delhi being again, the metropolitan place. And now they cannot go back to the place where they were earlier. So they're in a lurch. And what we've done for the first time, the school will be there for 10 years. And for the first time, we've had a separate section of such parents who've not sought admissions into formal schools and have nowhere to go. So for the first time, we've had like a proper 30 children, a lot of 30 children out of that 250 who've not got admissions into formal schools, and they're waiting
they
on
just
the whole.
extended now their nursery
So April and May is an
junior.
extended school, an extended shift for those children, so that they don't sit at home and they're still waiting when the admissions would be finalized.
And so Amit, what is the real recourse? Because you said you are now in discussion with the Directorate of Education. You're trying to get them to see reason. Now with the courts in the mix, how complicated and how complex? Because as Nipa pointed out, parents are really in the lurch.
Shivraj, at this stage, a lot of things have happened and things are in court, etc. But, this is not rocket science. I mean, this is a simple process. And in this age and time, and that too in the capital city, if this mess is allowed to be created, I don't think in which century we are living in. You see, for EWS, the Directorate of Education follows a formula that
Sure.
is based on distance and draw of lots.
Right.
It's simple, there is no confusion, there's nothing of this sort happening. It should basically have one single criteria, whether for EWS and disadvantaged groups or for general students. It should be based on distance and draw of lots.
Absolutely.
There is no justification for, because I'm an alumni of a certain school or because I'm interstate transfer. Everyone should have equal opportunity. So you have a distance criteria and you have draw of lots if the applicants are more than the number of seats. It's
And
as simple as that.
And Amit, a lot of private unaided schools, of course, have claimed that they've closed the process. Like you pointed out, there's a sort of dynastic advantage that's built into the entire process and system. What about the argument of increasing capacity? Is that feasible?
Yeah, actually, it can be, and government should be in talks with private schools where two shifts can be, because you see, it's a problem of demand and supply. That's
Sure.
the root cause of the problem. So if there are two shifts in a school, I mean, if certain school agrees for two shifts, I don't see a reason why it should not be done. But more importantly, I mean, the government should pull up its own socks. It should improve quality of education in its own school.
Sure.
It should look for public-private partnership. I mean, because if government schools become better, then I guess, the pressure on private school would also reduce. But, for all this, you see, Shivraj, these are all interconnected.
Right.
I mean, imagine tomorrow if a top bureaucrat's child does not get admission in a private school and he has to send his child to a government school, don't you think the quality of education would, I mean, he will ensure that the quality of education is improved over there.
Right.
So
But what
today,
about the issue of patronage, Amit? Because, you know, a lot of these schools are built on the idea of being businesses and patronage, and therefore there are these other decisions that fall into the mix, like you pointed out at the outset of our conversation. How does the government step in and make it a far more transparent process? Because I'm not sure if what they've done now is making it that transparent.
no, I mean, there are enough loopholes and then the criteria is flawed. But otherwise, to make it transparent is as simple as this, that you have the same, distance criteria and draw lots. Obviously, management quota, there's a myth that the management quota has been abolished this year. It was abolished way back in 2010. It was being allowed with tacit approval of Directorate of Education to continue for 3 years, and I had been writing repeatedly. In
Right.
fact, the previous chief minister had, in fact, even asked the Directorate of Education to give a report, and they did not do that. So basically, there's corruption, there's patronage, and it's basically a Neta Babu businessman nexus.
Okay, so you know, I just wanted to bring in Nipa into the conversation because from a parent's and a human perspective, you know, you were alluding earlier to the fact that a lot of parents had to move to Delhi per force to get out of this interstate tussle that's been happening on quota. How has it impacted parents and young kids who are now literally on hold?
It's just that the parents are on hold, and what they do is they were like running door to door, asking everybody that they meet, you know, if they could be helping them out with the management quota, or if you know somebody from the school.
So isn't that the problem really? Like Amit is pointing out, it's all about businesses running schools, patronage.
Yeah, it's
a lot
the
of
schools
money
have now
changing
become
hands.
a money-making organization, you know. So the basic essence of schooling is all gone for a six, and the parents even are ready, you know, they try saving throughout the year for getting the child into a good school, and they look for about people who would be helping them out, and which doesn't happen normally. It does
But
happen
also a lot
sometimes.
of privately aided schools are upping fees and increasing the hurdles and sort of the ability for kids to enter these schools.
But then
What is the
the
solution?
schools know that, you know, whatever come may happen, the parents will take out that little bit of money for their children to be seeking admission for the next 12 years. So the schools know that these parents are ready to do anything for the sake of admissions, and that's how they're taking advantage and, you know, trying to just do whatever they
Okay, so we've got Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra who's joined us as well on Google Hangout. Now, Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra is an aggrieved parent who's been waiting for the last 4 months for clarity for admission for his daughter. Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra, give us a sense of the kind of runaround you've faced with all this back and forth with the courts, with the authorities, and with lack of clarity on the entire admission process.
Yeah, you're very true. There's total lack of clarity. The whole system is not truly tuned up to ensure a smooth admission for the kids. You see, first of all, the guidelines which came were half-baked. They were kind of pushed in, made by some very in a great hurry and haste. And once they were formulated, we expected them to be followed up thoroughly, but it was very unfortunate that the whole process was interrupted. The process was
And
interrupted
just, you know,
after
Sanjeev,
the.
and
Yeah.
Sanjeev, from your perspective as a parent, you know, just trying to get a sense of the kind of stress you face, because in between you thought you made those points that were required for your daughter to get admission, and then suddenly there was a changing of goalposts. How did that? I mean, what have you done in face of that kind of change in the situation? What is your status right now vis-a-vis the education for your child?
Right, my daughter has completed her play school and
Right.
she's at home. She's doing nothing. And she had picked up so many things at the play school, which was so wonderful. She was into a good format of studies and socializing, growing up pretty well. However, last 2 months, 3 months, it has been totally at home and she has lost all what she had gained. We are working couples. We try to work hard as possible to spend time with her, get her into good habits, and get her into good etiquettes. But you see, child learns a lot at school.
Right.
We spend a couple of hours with her every day, but then I think that's not enough. Whatever socializing or whatever time she spends with her peers at school is more important, and whatever time is being lost. People say, oh, what's big deal about nursery? It's not a university, it's a
Clearly,
nursery,
there's a
but
lot
then
of
it's the foundation.
right. Clearly, there's a lot of anguish, Sanjeev. We'll just come back to you, but we joined in our conversation by Mr. Sumit Vora, who's from nurseryadmissions.com. Sumit, 3 o'clock, the courts are going to hear from the Delhi government on whether they can actually accommodate interstate admissions, increase the number of seats. What is really going on? Because for parents, like you heard from Sanjeev, there's this huge gap that kids are sitting at home, and there's a lot of confusion.
There's one more bad news for parents. The date has been deferred to 2 May.
Okay.
And there's a confirmed news.
Okay.
Yeah. And like it's a circus this year. Like I haven't seen, so many twists and turns from last 7 years in my forum. And I saw more than 20 notifications by DOE. Like DOE is doing blunder on blunders. Then the guidelines were made. What they're doing today, if they're asking schools, can you accommodate 5 to 6 child in per class? Had they done it before 18th of December when the guidelines came, did they consult any stakeholder? Like, okay, the schools were given a free hand, so they were calling it the shots from last 5-6 years. We were angry. We used to fight against the school from last 6-7 years. This year, no parent community was consulted, and it was hurried the guidelines came. And moreover, how can you change the rules of a rugby or football match midway?
Right.
Yeah. So how can we draw a point? We were against the fake transfer point, NCR transfer point. Till last year, any person coming from Gurgaon or Noida was not considered transfer point from for many big schools like DPS, you name any big school. So they had categorically mentioned it won't be entertained.
Right.
But this year, when I intervened and I wrote a letter to the DO director, she clearly answered it. No, it's an interstate. Noida means interstate.
Sure.
The irony is you can apply to the leading schools in Delhi from Noida because it comes in the ambit of 8 kilometers, and
Absolutely.
you're getting transfer also from Noida.
Okay.
So we were never against the genuine transfer parents who suffered, but the problem here is, with due respect to the feelings of the main transfer, I think more than 30-40,000 parents won 70 points who's staying in Delhi. So they say we have done any crime we are saying in Delhi from last 40 years, and we are not entitled for a seat.
Okay.
And what is the logic of, let's first debate, what is the logic of giving a transfer point in nursery admissions? You're coming a mid-session, I'm game for it.
Okay.
But when nursery, you're staying in neighborhood, I'm staying in neighborhood, it's irrespective. There was no logic giving the transfer.
Okay.
That was the main bone of contention.
Okay, so let me just bring in Amit Bhargav, who's also been in the conversation. Amit, I think if you heard what Sumit was saying, what's the logic of doing this sort of conditionality of interstate at the level of nursery admissions?
There is no logic. I mean, in fact, there is no merit. And I'd been writing to DOE, ever since the guidelines came. In fact, the very next day I wrote, there is absolutely no logic to have. I've been saying there's no logic for not just interstate transfer, there's no logic for alumni points, and there's no logic for sibling points, because we do not have enough schools. It's a demand and supply mismatch. And therefore, everyone should at least have equal opportunity. Interstate transfer, obviously, had this been class 2, class 3, I could have still understood that education would be interrupted, and therefore, so that education is not interrupted for interstate transfer, this can be allowed. But for entry level, it has no logic. Everyone is at the same, at the same platform.
Right.
They're all starting education, and therefore,
and it's
Sumit
patently
has a point
unfair
that
then
people-
for impressionable young child as well. Amit, I'm just going to bring in Sanjeev, because Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra is actually bearing the brunt of what's happening. Dr. Malhotra, your initial reactions to what Mr. Sumit Vora just said, that apparently he's heard that the process has again been deferred to May 2nd. What is your initial reaction to that?
Confirm news.
It is very, very disappointing. The whole system is totally derailed. As far as the criteria which Amit just said, I believe the only criteria which can hold its value is the neighborhood. A child living in the immediate neighborhood should have a privilege, because you cannot ask a child to travel 8 kilometers.
Absolutely.
Because he's on the other edge of the 8 kilometers, and the child from the other edge of the 8 kilometers come this side to study. That is not fair. The child who is in the nearest vicinity of the school should get the admission to that school. That should be the only criteria. The sibling, alumni, these are all secondary things. I don't give great importance to that.
I
However,
think
as
Okay.
Amit said, we are short on the school seats. So
And
when
as
we're
a
short,
result, yes, and so so Dr. Sanjeev is actually pretty aggrieved because
yeah,
like he was saying,
exactly.
his daughter's being homeschooled. They're both busy professionals. I think it's a valid point.
It's
Why
a
should
very
all these external factors rather than proximity
See,
be a
I'll
factor?
tell you what has happened is like first of all, come to what he's saying in neighborhood. I agree with him. What's the logic of giving the same points to a person who's staying 8 kilometers far away and person staying next to school? So it should have been a staggered way, what do you call a slab way. Okay, 0 to 3 kilometers. And I know a lot of sibling cases who could not get admission because they're staying beyond 8 kilometers. They bought a flat in Vasant Kunj. So out of these, only one factor on which we are the biggest forum in India, all the parents agree is a sibling case because it's very tough for a parent to send
separate the kids.
yeah, it's very
Okay,
tough.
the
It's a
other
different
point-
culture,
right,
different
absolutely.
culture, then different timing, and for especially for working parents, fetching kids from two different
Sure.
bus stops, it's very big issue. Then the other things were Ganguly had Mr. Ganguly
Ganguly, yeah.
guidelines, yeah, he had
Sure.
proposed there was some options like safe transport.
Sure.
If you give an undertaking to a school, okay, I'll pick and drop to the the child from the school and for the whole 14 years. So you could avail the same maximum neighborhood points that was never utilized. Okay.
Okay.
So there are a lot of good proposals given. So what I thought was it was a good system in the beginning. All the parents were quite happy. Okay, no, it is a blanket rule. No school won't be able to exploit us. That point, 5 points backfired. Then some parents were aggrieved because of the management quota also because they didn't have any other option. Like, we were very happy with the management quota going away, but some people like the influential people, they thought they could get it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Amit also raised a very moot point. The whole approach to economically, sort of disadvantaged sectors, the EWS. Those parents don't have the tools to really do any more. So they've been left in the lurch. What happens to them then?
Parents and the audience won't be aware. There are more around 1 lakh applicants
Sure.
applying in Delhi, and out of them only 20 because approximately 25,000 seats are there for EWS. Totally around 1 lakh plus seats are there by DOE schools. So only 25,000 children go to the schools. Rest of the children, they are on the roads and doing all type of nonsense what they are not supposed to do this year. So I've got my sympathies with them. The only problem is that the DOE has become defunct. I think all the DOE people should resign this year.
Okay,
It's
that's a
fiasco.
strong statement. But let me
Yeah.
go back to Amit. Amit, while Sumit is obviously, raising a very emotive point. On the other hand, the fact is that a lot of private unaided schools have started slamming the door on a lot of parents saying the process is shut. In that situation, what can authorities do to make sure that there is enough capacity for kids to get that access?
No, I mean, if you are, sorry, your voice, I think there's a connectivity problem, but what I understand is that you are talking of increasing capacity.
Right.
Yeah, so as I said,
Or are there any
double shift-
punitive measures as well for schools that are refusing admissions right now?
No, schools who are refusing admission, see, there's, because of all this confusion, there's a lot of corruption that is going on.
Sure.
And therefore, that is another portal that's another TV channel that's some sting operation and showed that there are wrongdoings going on.
Big capitations and things.
In fact, I would like to point out two very critical things.
Okay.
One, under RTI, I sought some information from Directorate of Education. Now, Sumit says that everyone must resign. I must say one person must not resign, and that's a Principal Secretary Education. He had given his opinion saying he had gone against everyone, and he had put it in writing, and he said that criteria as it is followed for EWS and DG disadvantaged group should be applicable to general category students. And he had said everything that it would, if you follow anything else, it would lead to corruption, it would lead to lots of wrongdoings, etc., etc. He is the only person, and I've seen the entire record, and he has done it. He was overruled by the LG.
Okay.
Now, another very critical thing I got an RTI reply yesterday, shocking. The Directorate of Education and has already spent 26 lakhs on paying Mr. Raju Ramchandran, the senior counsel, appearing against the parents and also the schools. But now you see, how can a poor parent go fight these litigation? Yesterday, the Supreme Court also said, the Honorable Supreme Court said that these litigations are silly. They're absolutely silly. We are not talking rocket science. Have a simple criteria, neighborhood and drop lots. We are done with the problem.
Sure.
Yeah, the schools won't be able to make money, but then, as per the Act, the Education Act, they're not supposed to be making money. I mean, they open schools for educating children. It's a charitable organization, etc., etc. They get lots of subsidies, subsidized land. So they can be unhappy. I don't care. I only want parents to be happy, and just neighborhood and draw lots does it. I mean, as simple as that.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Sanjeev, just your quick intervention on that before we close the discussion.
I have got 2 points to make.
Sure.
See, in the nursery admission is only in the private unaided schools. What about the government school? Why the education starts from class 1 in government schools? Why can't you have the nursery classes in class 1 in the government schools? You have the infrastructure, you have teachers, you have a building. You
Valid.
can have the
Very valid.
admission from the nursery. Why from the first class?
Very valid.
I would
And so I want to bring Sumit on that, Dr. Sanjeev.
yeah.
One more make here a point to Mr. Bhargav. See, I would not agree with the point that we don't care about schools. If schools have to provide the quality teachers, the quality facility, the quality infrastructure, it costs.
Sure.
It either it all depends on what are the ways the school is earning money and what are the ways the school is spending money. So that is, as a parent, that is not my prerogative. I want to see a specific set of facilities or infrastructure for my
Absolutely.
child. And if I find that in a school, I'm in a capacity to pay it, I would pay. At the same time, I have got the equal sympathy for the EWS kids. But the solution is, of course, these schools have to do their social work also. But our government is not doing the basic social work. Why can't they add increase the number of schools? You have got so much number of malls coming up, cinema halls coming up. But how much number of schools you have seen coming up in the last 10 years?
Yes, I'll come. I'll
So,
tell you.
Sumit,
Yeah.
you wanted to say something on
Yeah,
that.
first of all, our constitution, RTE, they have put the child from 6 to 14 years because the schools cannot have, the government schools cannot have nursery admissions. Otherwise, you can go to the court tomorrow, you can say, under the RTE, I'm entitled to admission of my child in the nursery school. So they don't have nursery school, so that's the
But
problem
that's a
with the
pity,
government.
and I think that's what Sanjeev is saying. It's a pity
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they're
it's a
not
pity.
going that
See,
extra mile.
see,
26 lakhs on litigation,
we have
but
been
not
fighting,
for...
the different parent committee have been fighting from last 20 years. They could not even make one model school or have a PPP, public-private partnership.
Absolutely, that's what I was coming to.
Or coming to Kendriya Vidyalaya level. If the upgrade rate, I've seen some schools where there's no washroom. A girl after a certain age cannot
Absolutely,
go to school.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And what the total scenario is on the High Court order. Parents have paid the admission. The parents were told, okay, by 9th, I'm coming on different note because I think we are running out short of time.
Right.
Very important, valid point. Because now, if the 2nd May date comes, some schools are closing on 4th.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now on 3rd April, the High Court gave this order to all the parents with confirmed admission. You deposit the fee, you forego all
From
the
the
schools,
25th
choose
of
one
April.
school. Yeah. Now
Right.
all the parents have paid 3-month fees.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what.
Now they're asking me who's going to return the fees because there's going to be no session because this nursery
On the
admission-
4th.
Yeah, it starts from 7th or 4th of May.
Okay.
So and the April, May, June. So the 3-month this is gone. So there are a lot of issues that have been resolved. I think the Supreme Court wanted to do it in a hurry. They gave only
Of
24
course, I
hours
understand
today.
the urgency, but I think
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it's so
what-
complex.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Nipa, just last words from you. What impact then does this have? Like, the session's opening later. This has been deferred on 2nd of May. What kind of reactions are you anticipating from parents who are right now on hold and have their kids in extended classes in your
See,
school?
all these parents that are on hold are only banking on the preschool or the play school that their child is
That's
being
a lot of
already
pressure on
going.
you,
Yes.
right?
There isn't a pressure because these children have been with us for about good
Okay.
1.5 years and we wouldn't want the parents to be, in a problem. So as much as we could do for the children, and as he said that they've charged for April, May and June quarter, and for the parents' benefit, we, understanding their point of view that they've got to shell out their extra money in the formal school, we've only charged the children half of May, not even for the full May, keeping in mind the money that they're going to.
But some
So,
schools, yeah, but some
that's
schools
what-
are
so
paying
they-
at 2 places.
Ah.
Play
Yeah,
school and
as
here.
well as the formal school. So
That's a really tough one. So I'm just going to get Amit in for the last one. Amit, we're totally out of time, but from a solutions perspective, what would you like to see in the next few steps?
Well, I mean, since the matter is in the court, I mean, I would actually encourage the 70 pointers to also intervene in the court because their voice is not in the court. And I think the court needs to know what they are going through. So I would encourage them to intervene. And maybe the Supreme Court finds a solution this time forever. And if not, then at least for next year, I think what the Principal Secretary Education advised, what I have been writing to the government for last 3 years, what others have been writing, have admission based on neighborhood and draw of lots.
Okay,
That's the only solution. It's equal opportunity for all.
absolutely.
And yeah, and I would just end with that.
Okay, so neighborhood and a draw of lots. Thank you very much, Amit, Dr. Sanjeev Malhotra, Nipa Vishisht, and Sumit Vora for joining us in this conversation. You too can join in on our conversations by posting your comments on our website, indiapostlive.com. Continue tweeting with us because this is clearly a very emotive issue. Thanks for watching India Post Live.